Well, it is good to see you again here in our podcast for A Future and a Hope Counseling Ministry. We are talking once again to Tad Bodman, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. If you were with us last time, you know we started on a journey speaking about the four horsemen. So we're going to give Tad just some time here to introduce our topic.
Sure. And, Rich, we're talking about these four toxic behaviors because the research is really clear just how damaging they are to a marriage. These behaviors, if they're really become habitual way of communicating, the research shows that they end a relationship, a marriage, within 6 years. And this is data that's drawn from following thousands of couples over multiple decades, right? So it's really important for us to be talking about these four behaviors, and more importantly, to learn, well, what do we do to really remove them from our marriages, so that we're treating each other in a way that really encourages emotional intimacy, supports this sense of safety and security with each other, rather than breaking that down in a marriage.
I agree, Tad, and I believe that all of us who are married experience these to one degree or another, perhaps not as severe as Gottman might depict them in his works, but certainly we can all benefit from this and being at least aware of these. Yeah. I'm wondering, Tad, why is it? Why is it that we experience these things in our marriages?
Well, all of us have this deep need that God's given us to be loved, to be respected, right? And to have this deep relational connectivity. Right? He created us in our very beings to need that with Him. And He's created marriage to be this really unique, set-apart relationship where we have the opportunity to experience and create that kind of unity that He enjoys with Himself. And so when those needs aren't being met, when we're feeling hurt or wounded, we begin to look for ways to express that to each other. And while we may be saying, "Are you there for me? Am I worthy of your love? Am I lovable?" Right? We may be saying that underneath, but sometimes that comes out in these four horsemen behaviors, right? Today we're talking about. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Ted, you remind me that we're these fallen creatures and oftentimes feel inadequate. And many times it comes out in these ways that you're describing.
Sure.
Well, last time we introduced the four horsemen. They are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Mm-hmm. Tad is going to lead us in speaking about criticism. If you can explain that to us, Tad, and how do we deal with this first horse of criticism?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Rich. And one of the things I'd say as I lead into describing criticism, the way I invite you to use this information is to become relentlessly focused on how does this behavior show up in your behavior, right? We're all highly attuned to when our spouse is critical, but all we can really control is our own behavior in a marriage, right? And criticism is one of those really important toxic behaviors because research shows that about 96% of the time a conversation ends on the exact same note as it begins. So we can identify criticism often, right? When we begin a sentence, when we begin speaking to our spouse by using the word I, right? I'm sorry, but by using the word you. When I start and I
Yes.
say you're going to, right? The other way to recognize criticism is when we start using absolute terms, right? When I say you always, you never, right? Those are really good ways of identifying what criticism looks like in a marriage. And there are some kind of sneaky ways, right? The way that shows up. But in its essence, right? Criticism is a way of you where you're attacking your spouse's character, right? You're not talking about their behavior. You're not talking about your feelings or what you want. You're talking about them and their character, right? So that's a good sort of way of thinking about this idea that when I'm expressing a frustration by focusing on my spouse's flaws instead of what I'm feeling and what I want or desire, I'm invariably using criticism in speaking to my spouse.
Mm. Yes, and I can see where if we are critical of our spouse and it becomes a pattern, we're externalizing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We're always looking for the other person to change. They are the root of the difficulty, and there's less of a personal ownership. So
Right.
there is this ongoing blame and accusation and criticism. I noticed, Ted, and I'd like your comment on it, that
Mm-hmm.
that God is not saying that it's wrong to express a complaint.
Right.
Like, what, Tad, what would be the difference between
Yeah.
vocalizing a complaint
Mm-hmm.
versus endless criticism?
Yeah. The difference would be starting with the word I instead of you, right? And the essence of it is communicating what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, and what you want. So you're being vulnerable enough to tell your spouse, I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling disrespected. I'm feeling unheard, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then to tell them what you want, right? So a complaint might sound like, I feel exhausted. I need you to pick up the kids from school, right? As opposed to saying, you never pick up the kids from school. Why is it always my responsibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a way of identifying this. We need to, and we deserve the dignity of being able to bring our complaint, to bring our feelings, our experiences, and share them with our spouse, and to express to them what we want. This really allows them to hear us, to know more about us, and then to respond in a way that's really meeting our needs.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I would say it's difficult for someone else to deny what we're feeling.
Right.
If we're externalizing it all the time, that can be interpreted different different ways. But if we're being honest and legitimate, and I would add rational, with all our own feelings and the way we're perceiving a situation, we're basically offering our perception, our interpretation, and the way something is going down in the marriage, in the family,
Right.
and that can't be denied because it's my
Right.
opinion, our opinion about the way we're feeling about something.
Right. And as it turns out, Rich, the only kind of people we're married to are people, human
Mm-hmm.
beings that are essentially flawed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're always having these experiences of being misattuned to each other, not responding in a way that's meeting each other's needs, right? And
Mm-hmm.
God really understood that about us. But he also invites us to that kind of vulnerability where we're bringing those feelings, those desires to each other in a way that can be heard, right? Um,
Yes.
we're going to talk about defensiveness next week. And it's interesting, and we'll see how these things kind of flow into a pattern of or a cycle of behavior, right? When I'm critical of my wife, the natural human response is to become defensive, right? But when I share with her my feelings, my hurt, my fear, and my desire, then I'm freeing her up to actually respond to what's going on for me.
Yes.
Mhm.
What I'm taking away from this, Tad, is that as we started, criticism is something that grows out of our fear. It grows out of our insecurity. Unfortunately, it's a part of everyday life. It's a part of marriage. I don't think we should be shocked by it. This is
Right.
something we should see and understand and then to deal with. And then I hear what you're saying is that the way that we handle it is by trying to focus on the way we're perceiving things,
Mhm.
expressing these things to our spouse. Uh, I would say, from what I'm taking from this, in a humble way,
Mhm.
a non-adversarial way,
Mhm.
uh, way in which we're regulating our emotions, we're watching our body language, the tone of our voice,
Mhm.
and we approach it with an openness to learn
Right.
and ultimately negotiate the
Mhm.
differences that we have with our spouse. And I think what you're saying, Tad, is if we can start by checking our criticism
Mhm.
and trying to deal with it in the right way, perhaps the other horsemen may not even occur. Or if they
Yeah.
do, maybe we can deal with
Right. This criticism is often a gateway to the other four, right?
it.
And the assumption, right? The fundamental first requirement, Rich, is am I able to be attuned to what I'm feeling and what I want? Because I can't say that if I don't know what it is,
Yes,
right?
very good.
And then the second is once I'm attuned to what I'm feeling, what I want, will I risk sharing that with my beloved?
Mm. Ted, I think you've given me some things I can apply today in
Hmm.
my marriage, and I certainly appreciate that.
That's my pleasure. It's good to be with you
It's
today.
been good. It's been good to be with you today. And as we remind you on all our podcasts, our center is available if you or someone you know could benefit from our counseling. And with that, we hope to see you in our next time together. Tad, any closing comments?
Nope, just that it's important to think about these tools that we're bringing to you in a way that you're focusing on your behavior. If you trust God with your spouse's behavior, things are gonna grow. Things are gonna get better, and use these tools to really think about how do I show up better in my marriage. And I look forward to talking about defensiveness with you all next week.
Absolutely. Y'all take care. We will see you next time.